Hello, everyone. I've got a special guest on the show today. Her name is Laura Rubin. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Pauline. I'm really excited to be part of the show today.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to be speaking to you and getting to know your story as well. So, Laura, to start off with, please introduce yourself and what do you do?
You bet. My name is Laura Rubin, reformed hustle bunny, joy seeker, lover of life. I am a coach to corporate and entrepreneurial women, teaching them how to get off the hustle train and get on the joyride so they can start living life on their terms.
Wow, that is awesome. I would love to just get off the hustle train and just be living my life with joy every day. But this particular aspect of hustle, the hustle train, I want to get into that a little bit more and learn from you. What is that all about, and how did you sort of get onto the hustle train?
You bet. I started by checking off all the boxes: college, career, marriage, children, nice house, nice car, all the things that society tells you this is what success is. And I worked really hard for that next, and almost to the point where got that. Okay, check that off. Now the next thing, check that off. Now the next thing. And I just went, I just hustled to get all of those things. I reached that point and realized that it wasn't really fulfilling like I thought it was going to be. This is supposed to be success, and yet something felt, like it was missing. That it wasn't. Yeah, I wasn't fulfilled the way that I thought that I was going to be, and I lost my job about midlife, and I had the opportunity to decide. Did I want to go back to doing what I was doing, which I was good at, but it didn't really light me up? Or did I want to do something for the second half of my life that really lit me up so that I could really make a difference for myself, feel accomplished for myself and make a difference for others as well?
Yeah. So you really got to that, what they say is midlife crisis, in a sense of reassessing and reinventing, I guess, the next phase or the next
Yes.
chapter of your life. I'm really curious, if the crisis didn't happen, if you didn't get to the point where you lost your job,
Mhm.
how would things be different? Would they be the same, or how would things change?
I think that I still would have gone on the journey because I was getting to the point where, like I said, I had reached all the things, I checked off all the boxes that supposedly were success, and I just did not feel fulfilled. So I feel like I still would have gone on the journey. I just think the losing of my job forced me to go on the journey, or allowed me to go on the journey sooner than stringing it out. I did not necessarily have a huge epiphany that, oh, my life is not what I wanted. It was just kind of slowly sucking my soul. Like I did not like it, but I didn't know what I wanted to do and how to make that change. The losing of the job really gave me the opportunity to clear things out and have a clean slate. And then it was up to me, what was the decision that I was going to make at that time.
Yeah. So really the opportunity from something that, may be perceived as negative, as in a
Yes.
loss, has actually become your blessing, in a sense of
Yes.
reassessment. Sucking the soul, you mentioned. What did that feel like, or along the way leading up to this?
Constant going, constant being busy, filling free time with busy work, whether it needed to be, filled, just having this nagging feeling that there's more I should be doing. I'm not working hard enough. What's the next thing I need to get done on my to-do list? Life is living you. Life was living me. I wasn't living life. And I really had never taken the time to really figure out who I was and what was important to me. I was just, like I said, on the hamster wheel, checking off all the boxes and not paying attention to what was going on around me.
Yeah. And this busyness or this go attitude to tick all the boxes, where did this attitude come from? Or where did this belief that you had to be busy in your spare time, where did that all come from?
Part of it was trying to feel worthy, gaining my worth by what I could do, what I was able to accomplish. So in order to feel worthy, I had to work hard. And if that wasn't making me feel worthy, then I had to work harder. So it was a constant game of chasing the worth and feeling accomplished, feeling good about myself. And so it just kept me on that path, because the opposite of working in my head was being lazy. I did not want to be called lazy. I did not want people to think I was lazy at all, because that had such a negative connotation. So in order to not be lazy, I had to work hard and keep working.
Yeah. And this sense of like unworthiness or trying to chase the worth, there's a lot of people out there that experience this, and even for myself in the past, sometimes it's never enough. Like you want to always feel like that you're working on something and you're doing something to really fill that container up. How did you find that for yourself? Like at which point did you feel like, look, I've got the worth?
It required a lot of inner work. It required understanding and realizing that worth isn't an outside external thing, it's an internal thing. And when I really didn't start diving into it until I lost my job. And then it was time I had the opportunity to really go down the path of, it started out by trying to figure out what's my purpose. Everyone's looking for their purpose. And I truly believe that our purpose is to live life on our terms. Our purpose is to figure out who we are and what matters and live according to that every single day. And then our passion is an outward expression of our internal purpose, of what we've discovered about ourselves. And then it shows up and we share it with the world through the passion that we bring to the outside world. And so I was spending my days trying to find worthiness on the outside from the accolades or the praise or, whatever that, the salary or the title, when in fact, really, I just needed to believe in myself. I needed to trust and stand in who I was. I just didn't know who I was. I didn't know what was important. I had all the labels: wife, mother, CEO, business owner. So I was using those as who I was and what my meaning was. And then when you peeled all those back, I didn't know. I had no idea what made me tick and what my importance was.
So talk us through the process of like when you had those titles, because there's a lot of titles there that we actually collect along the way as we go through life. What's the difference between, like, how did you get to recognition of like when you peeled back the layers, you didn't know who you were without them? Because
I wish I could tell you that something happened and I figured it out. It just, as I started diving into what made me tick, I realized that I was more than a wife. I was a joy seeker. Joy is so important to me. Being happy, showing up, positive in no matter what situation I am became so important. So it didn't matter whether I was a wife, mother, CEO. I could show up as that in any role that I had. So I started realizing that who I really was could show up in each of those roles. So it just became an internal project for me. And for me, I realized that it was really important to go internally because I had ignored the internal. Everything I'd ever done was external. And so I realized that I was missing, again, I was missing the inside. I wasn't being a whole being. I was working from my shoulders up. Everything was external. Everything was in my head. And I hadn't tapped into my intuition and my gut and my empathy and compassion and the feelings of being a whole being.
Yeah. Tell us, what did you discover when you went and dived into this internal project, as you call it? what was the crucial thing, or what did you get out of it for yourself when you worked on this project?
That it was hard. It was, because I immediately wanted to go back to what I was used to, which was putting my worth on everything that was external. So as incorrect's not the right word, but as incorrect as looking for worthiness outside, I still, going inside was such a process, and it was difficult. It was really looking at what made me tick, and there were things that I didn't like, and I had to look at those and decide what did I accept that, I'm not perfect. I'm a recovering perfectionist, and accept that I wasn't perfect, lean into that, and give myself grace to be who I really needed to be, to embrace who I was.
Mm.
And
How did
show up in the world as who I was.
Yeah, because it's such a process, and I think that it's one of those lifetime projects that we all work on in terms of discovery of ourselves and going deeper within and who we are. What are some of the things that people need to know in terms of, like, you found out that joy was one of the important things to you. How did you go about discovering that? Or like, how do people go about discovering what's important to them?
So it's actually, I have an exercise that I take my clients through. So it's very, like circle. I have a list of 100 words, and you go through and you circle every word that speaks to you, that resonates. And then from those words that you circle, you actually make 5 columns, and you group the words that are similar together in the 5 columns. Then you read each of those words out of the 5 columns, and you pick one that really is a standout for you. And then from that, you define that for yourself. That's the key, because how you define courage or how you define joy could be different than how I define joy and courage. But I picked out those words that really spoke to me in those 5 lists. And then I went and I defined what that meant to me. What does joy mean to me? And joy for me is a state of being. I am in a state of joy no matter what is happening around me. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily that I'm happy, and I don't have, the new buzzword is now toxic positivity. I'm positive just to be positive. What it does mean, though, is that I always have this state of joy underneath. So even though I may be unhappy, or life isn't going right, and I'm complaining a little bit, I can come back to the joy. Remember, my core value is joy as a state of being. So and that's my process. And that's a very, follow this, a very systematic process. And yet it was really helpful for me to determine what those words were for me.
Yeah. And it's great that there's like a practical exercise that people can actually, go and get deeper within what actually resonates with them. So I think like when you just go through like, well, what's important to you? There could be 50 different things, and that's where you get a bit confused about, well, I want to do all of these things. Why can't I just have it all?
And that's what's important is, and I've talked about finding yourself, what's important to you, what matters to you. That's all, it's all ethereal. It's kind of pie in the sky kind of thing. So you've got to bring in those practical activities and exercises to bring it back to yourself, because it just doesn't fall out of the sky and you just don't figure it out. You have to take action. So one of the things you do too is, I always say, action breeds clarity. So just like you were talking about, you have all these things that you want to do, go try them. You're going to find out really quick. Oh yeah, I really like this. Oh no, why I don't like this at all. I'm not going to keep this in my repertoire of things that I want to have be part of my life. The only way to figure those things out is to actually take those steps and try those things. You will figure out just as much about what you don't like as what you do like. And that's important.
Yeah, exactly. I want to go back a little bit to when you talked about the busyness side of things. After you lost your job and then went and did this internal project, what's changed in terms of your perspective on business, and how do you manage, or how are you being now compared
You
to
bet.
before? Mm.
Yeah, before was if I had free time, I found something to fill it with. There was some to do that I could, that may be down number 100 on the to-do list, but by God, it was on my to-do list and I've got free time, I'm going to do it. Or I was multitasking, doing multiple things at the same time. What I do now is when I have free time, I enjoy it. I actually have figured out, I have a list. What are some things that I can do in my free time? Maybe it's read a book for enjoyment. Maybe it's go walk outside. Maybe it's play with my dog. In the beginning, I actually made a list of what are some things that I could do in my free time. Again, it's my list. It's my list, my tendency to have lists, but I had to get to that place in how I worked. If I was going to try to just do it, like I'm just going to wake up today and I've got all these ideas that I'm going to do for my free time and I'll just do it. I didn't do it. I'm a list person. I needed lists. So that's how I started making the changes. How could I make the changes within the confines of how I work best? Instead of trying to put a round peg in a square hole, not going to happen. So for instance, I'm a morning person. So I'm much more focused and I work better in the morning. If I tried to do the activities that I focus in the morning in the afternoon that need focus, it's not going to happen. So you learn how you work best, and then you make the changes within how you work best. It's the only way to be successful.
And this is going to be kind of a strange one, but I'm curious because I think I've been on this little exercise and project myself. When you say that you fill in the time, the spare time, right? Because you could fill it in. Some people really like working, they like, it brings them joy and all of these things. Some people, they read, they like, oh yeah, that's something that I have to do, or like, I know I need to learn, right? It's something that I do find joy in learning. So then they go and do it, but it's more of an exercise of like it's still a doing versus
Right.
like when you're reading it, you're like, wow, like I'm just lost in it. And I feel like this is really giving me something like a different feeling, and I'm a better person because of it, right? What's the difference? Like if someone's like, well, I like reading and I'm just going to read, so in my spare time I'm going to read. What's the difference between what you do, how you've shifted like the activity versus fitting into the type of value, if you know what I mean?
The energy behind it. Is the energy behind what you're doing a should and a have to, or because you want to check off the box? I used to have what I called a morning routine, and I had 5 things that I would do in a certain order. And, to me, I was like, oh, I'm self-care. I'm taking care of myself. I'm giving myself spaciousness. What I realized was it still was a part of my to-do list. I was still checking it off. And the energy behind it, when I didn't do it, I felt guilty. So now I have that list of 5 things that I like to do in the morning. And I get up and I check in with myself. How much time do I have to, for these items this morning? What fits? What do I feel like doing? So it's the intention behind it. Is it for flow? Are you doing it in flow? Are you doing it with ease and grace? Or are you doing it because you've created this to-do list and you've got to check it off? And if you don't, you're going to feel guilty. So what's the energy behind what you're doing?
So does that mean that if you're into the list, and I love lists as well,
Yeah.
we're aligned in that way. If you've got these 5 things to do, to avoid having those feelings of guilt, like afterwards, if you're not checking them off, if you didn't complete the 5 things, or something had to change within the list itself, do you allow for that? And if you how does that change the outcome of how do you do it without feeling guilty afterwards that there was a disruption or the activity had to change? Yeah. Can you fill us in on that?
It's a learned behavior. I mean, you have to come to a point where There's productivity. Obviously, you make the list, you put the important things at the top so that if you don't get through all 5 things, the bottom 2 aren't that important and you move it to the next day, giving yourself grace and realizing, setting the boundaries of when you know what's important to you outside of your work, then you're okay with only getting through 3 of the 5 things because you've got importance outside the work, outside of your job. Your job isn't everything that you're doing. So it's okay. And you'll just pick up those things tomorrow, the next day. It's about being well-rounded. It's about being whole being. It's about your job not being 24/7 the only thing that you're focused on. So while you're figuring out what your core values are, you're also figuring out, what do you want to spend more time on? Outside of work, what are the things? Maybe you wanted to take dance lessons. Maybe you want to hike more. Maybe you want to play with your child more. That gets put on the top of your list, of priorities. So, and you weigh that and you start integrating and balancing. And I don't like balancing, harmony, because balance means that you spend 5 hours on this and 5 hours on that, kind of thing. And you balance the 2 together, when in fact, sometimes you have to spend 6 hours on one thing and 4 hours on the other. So you build a harmony between the 2. It doesn't have to balance, because that means both are treated equally. And sometimes work and play are not treated equally because you have a deadline. So you have to work a little bit more and you play a little less. But then the pendulum swings the other way, and now you can play a little bit more and work a little less. So it is harmony between the 2.
And it could be even thought of like in phases or in seasons, where there are like those periods of times where you do have to hustle or you have to work hard to get to the deadline to complete the project, but then also knowing that that can be eased off. It's not like all the time that you're in the same season.
And when you're in that season of hustle, find 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is, for the spaciousness. There are times that you have to hustle, and I'm not going to say that there's not, but you can still take small increments of time for yourself. And that's what's important.
You spoke about the well-roundedness. How important is it to be well-rounded? Because I could see that's, for people who are after this success or what they perceive to be a success, it can be that one-way ticket on that train, where they're like, that's where we're going. That's all we're doing. I don't have time for a relationship. I don't have time to go and like self-care and all these kind of things. I'm just focused, right? How important is it? Like, because if they start introducing other activities, that could be, as you said, part of the to-do list, right? In terms of well-rounding it. Is it important to be well-rounded, or like, do we have to expand the activities or have the balance?
I think that what's important is that work is not your entire life, because at the end of the day, ask yourself, was it worth me allowing everything else to fall away to get this salary, to get the corporate office, and some people may say yes, but I would venture to guess the majority of people will look back and go, well, I had no time with my friends. I don't have friends anymore because I was so busy working. I didn't have time to date. I'm not married, and maybe I want to be married now, things like that. So I just think that it's important to look at life and not have work be your entire world, that there is more to life, and whatever that more is for you. Maybe it's just, having dinner once a week with friends, or whatever that looks like. I mean, I'm certainly not going to tell someone what their well-rounded life looks like. Everybody's different. I just encourage people, and we've all seen the memes or the write-ups that say older people, when asked, what would they have liked to have done different in their life? Slow down, spend more time with family, less work. I mean, you see that across the board all the time. I want to believe that really is important, to incorporate that and to slow down and find some time for yourself.
And to add to that as well, I think work is one of those things on the top dying list of regrets of like, I wish I'd worked less as well.
Yes.
That it wasn't
Yes.
sort of the be all end all for some people.
Yes.
Yeah, interesting. Talk to us about boundaries, like because I think this is where it sort of links up. What is that about? Like, how do we ensure that we are setting the boundaries if we are still wanting to be productive and
Right.
make sure we're on top of everything?
So the important thing is, first of all, you need to know your core values in order to set appropriate boundaries for you. And you start setting those boundaries through that lens of what your core values are, what your strengths are, what you want to accomplish, what's your ideal vision, where are you going, what is it that you want to accomplish in your life, how does your ideal life look? So now you set boundaries, or you set your boundaries around what that vision, where you're going in it, and you look through life in that lens. And it just depends on you start making those decisions based on, you set those boundaries based on the lens that you're creating. And sometimes that includes more work, sometimes it doesn't. Just depends.
How do you do it personally, Laura? Like, how do you go about setting your boundaries, just to give people a bit of insight onto that?
So I really, so if a decision comes across my desk or across my field, I try really hard not to answer right away, because I'll say yes or no. And then later I'll say, oh, I wish I'd thought about that longer. So I'm teaching myself, unless it's an obvious, like you feel it your whole body, it's not just a knee-jerk reaction. I'm giving myself time. I'll say, I'll get back to you on that. I need to check my calendar so that I can really sit with the question. And another really quick, or another good, if you're asked to do something, you're excited about it now, or you think you're a yes now, will you be a yes in 2 weeks? Think about, does that excitement carry for 2 weeks? Because I know for myself, I'll say yes to something. 2 weeks later, I'm like, oh, I really don't want to do this. So if I took the time to decide, it's a yes now, but is it really a yes? And do I really want to do this in 2 weeks? So then that helps me make that decision. The other thing that helps me with decision making is, how do I feel about it? What am I saying yes or no because I feel like I should or I have to? Or do I really connect with that yes or no? How am I connecting with the yes or no? And sometimes that takes sitting with it and just kind of mulling it over and seeing how I feel about it, providing the space, getting out of my head, go out in nature, and just with that, decision to make, take it with you and see what comes up as you're moving, changing the energy around it.
Yeah. So instead of like rushing into things or saying yes straight away or no, you're just taking a step back, like sort of having a bit of a pause period to really reflect and assess.
And that's hard for me because I am a quick decider. I'm quick to say yes. I'm not so quick to say no. So I'm having to learn how to say no and be unapologetic about those no's. So that's the process that I'm on, because I'm a yes person. But I find that the more I do it, I take those little steps, and the more I do it, the more confident I get in it and I build on it. I was able to say no here, and it didn't feel good at first, but the fact that I said no and that situation isn't going to come into my field, I feel good about that. I said no, I couldn't do this because the timing wasn't right. And I'm glad that I did, because when that day comes and that activity comes up, you were like, oh, I'm glad I'm not doing this today because timing wasn't right. It doesn't fit into what I want to do.
Yeah. So really just like giving some time, space, and really just leaning into the feeling associated with the decision that you're about to make.
Yes. And, and the other piece too, find someone to be your sounding board. Not to give you advice, not to tell you what you should do. Talk it out. talk it out with somebody, call your friend and say, I just was invited to do this, or I have two options and I don't know which way to go. Can I talk it out with you? Not because you're asking them to give you the answer or to provide feedback. It's really more just to hear it out loud. And then they can provide thoughts or ask more questions about it so that you can come to a better idea, a better answer.
Yeah, because sometimes otherwise you could sit with the sort of the choices for a little while and
For
juggle
a
that.
really long time. And everybody processes questions differently. So you learn how you process and how you work best. And that's a trial and error kind of thing. Try talking with somebody. Maybe that doesn't work. Maybe you need to sleep on it and that works for you. Maybe you need to go out in nature and that works for you. So you start different ways of coming to decisions and see what resonates, what works.
Yeah. I want to just ask the side of, what are the risk factors? Like, what happens if we continue to work the way that we do and we continue to check the box and work hard and stay on the hustle train? What actually happens? Like, why would people want to get off the hustle train?
The people that want to get off the hustle train are looking for more in life than just checking off the boxes. They aren't fulfilled. It's back from the very beginning when we started the conversation. Yeah. What I felt, I did not feel fulfilled. I thought that there was something more. And here's the thing, not everybody gets to that point, or or people get to that point and they're not willing to step off. Everybody gets to make that decision for themselves. But ultimately, I want to believe that it's a lack of fulfillment. There's more. You're just, the things that you thought were going to bring you joy and excitement and fulfillment aren't doing it. So then you have to, then you go on the project, you make the project. What is it that brings me fulfillment? What is it that's going to work for me? And it may be, when you do that work, it's volunteering for an animal shelter. It's traveling all over the world, whatever that is. It's going to be a doing thing, but it's going to be a doing thing with the energy of self-care, taking care of your, and the energy of fulfillment, of feeling good about it, not feeling like, you have to do those things.
When you say talking about the energy of fulfillment, what's the difference with, say, like, I don't want to be on the hustle train and I'm really content. So I just be and I don't do, or I stop trying to achieve, like the opposite of what we've been talking about.
Right.
Is there any downfalls or, of just being in gratitude and just not doing any more than you need to as well? Like, what's your perspective on being content or just being fulfilled without the doing?
I think if you're fulfilled without the doing, then you're doing that way. That's the thing. If you feel like something is missing and something isn't quite right, that's what takes you on the journey. You can either ignore that or you could go on the journey. If you are fulfilled with where you are and how you're living your life, then who am I to tell you that that's not the way you should do it? Again, it goes back to our purpose in life is to live fulfilled, is to live on our terms based on what we define success as, or whatever that looks like to us. So if you feel fulfilled and you are happy in your life and this is how you want to live it, I say go for it. I'm not the one to tell you that you need to do it a different way.
Yeah.
And if you want to live a certain life and not feel fulfilled, it's not my place to tell you. I'm sad because I think there's more for you, but if that's how you want to live, you have the right to do that. That is your choice. And I respect that choice. If you are at a place that you're not fulfilled and you want to do something about it, grab on, let's go. We're going to have a great ride because it's going to be worth it every step of the way. But we all get to choose.
Exactly. So it's really about that gap. of like, these are the people, they want more than what they have.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Because you have to be ready to step off the train, because it is not an easy endeavor. It's you can do it, and it's not like it's impossible, but it requires you to step out of your comfort zone. It requires you to take courage. It requires you to want the fulfillment more than you want the comfort of staying where you're at. And you have to be ready to do that. And not everyone is. And until you are ready, I can pull you kicking and screaming all the way and give you all the great information. But if you're not ready to take it in, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So then it's really about that decision of like, how much do you want the fulfillment versus like the continual energy of the hustle and staying on the train, because being on the train is comfortable, right? Because sometimes you've trained yourself to know, like, if I work hard, I achieve this result. If I check the box, I'll do, like I'll feel
and there are people that is enough for them. They feel good about it, and it's a risk reward. The reward that they get from that, they are okay to take the risk because it works for them, and that's where they want to stay. I want to put out there that there's more, and I want to tell them that there's so much more to life that you're missing, but they don't know it. So you have to accept that they don't know it. And until they know or feel like they're missing something or that there's more, they're going to stay on the train.
Yeah. And that's completely okay, because I guess everyone's is on their own timelines. So until they feel that if there is something missing, that's when they have to kind of assess to make
exactly. And this is where this is where my passion and my mission is. I'm just sharing the message. You can take the message and do with it whatever you want. But I feel like the more that this message is shared, and it's not just me, I think that society, or not society, but we as people are starting to realize that there is more to life than the hustle train. And the more of us that start speaking about that, people realize there's a different way. Hopefully people will start making the change and stepping off the train.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially we've gone through a whole worldwide pause period as well. There's a lot of people that are having this opportunity to think about whether they want to stay on the train or explore something else. Yeah.
Agreed. We were kind of forced, and you use the word opportunity, and I totally have used that. That's really, especially in the beginning when they shut it all down, you got to see how do you operate in the world? Some people had a really difficult time because they were used to that moving and shaking and not taking the pause. Others stepped into it. Others were already there and kind of glad that they got to enjoy it more.
Yeah. So come to now. What are you working on these days, Laura?
You know what? I feel like you're never not working. I'm still doing what I'm doing. I'm still learning more about myself every day. My biggest thing that I really am stepping into is living life from curiosity, because I'm an Enneagram 3, because I'm an overachiever, because I'm a doer and a goer and a list person. I really don't have to know. I really want to know. If I start at A and I want to get to D, every single step along the way that's going to get me to D, and how that's all going to fall into place. I drive my husband crazy. What's your plan for tomorrow? He's not a planner. He's like, it'll be the weekend. What's your plan for tomorrow? I don't know. It's Saturday. I'm going to get up and I've got my day planned. So I am working on being curious and just being open. So starting my Saturday with loosely like, well, I'd kind of like to do this, or I'd kind of like to fit this in, but there's no plan. There's no checking off the boxes of things, and just letting life come to me and being open to possibility and curiosity. And when we loosen, at least for me, when I loosen the grip just a little bit, it releases the anxiety and brings in ease, because I'm not so hell bent on, it's got to be this way and it's got to happen this way. When, my outcome may be the same, but when I'm open to how I get there, because it's not a linear path, it kind of loops around and curves and flows and bends. If I'm good with that, the anxiety, I lose the anxiety, and then it becomes fun. It's like, what's next? where,
Yeah.
and when you get good at that, you get, or when you're able to do that over and over again, then when something gets thrown and dropped in your lap that's unexpected, there's no fear or anxiety, because it's like, okay, this is just another thing that I have to, flow with, go with, whatever that is. You get good at handling situations that maybe you're not in control of. You're curious, what's the possibility?
Very powerful. Loosening the grip and just letting life flow and going with the tides of life, rather than there is a attachment to outcomes.
It's control.
Yeah.
I wanted to control, and I still want to control, but I'm learning, like I said, to loosen my grip. I'm a control freak, always have been.
Same.
And that's so, but I will say, and this is part of it, I've started to let go, and I've started to see or experience less anxiety, and to realize that it's okay and it's still working. And it's kind of exciting that there's a different way, that I can look at life a different way and make it better for me. I don't have to be so, because when you're controlling, it's like when things don't go the way that you expect it to go, oh my gosh, like hell breaks.
World is over. Yeah.
Yeah, it's done. And now I am much more able to handle it. And I like it better that way. And when you're open to possibilities, oh my gosh, good things can flow that you don't even expect.
Yeah, it's like an adventure where you just find out along the way, rather than kind of expecting it and wanting it.
Yes.
And if it doesn't work out, it becomes catastrophic.
Right.
Yeah, as well.
Right. Yeah, so that's the big thing that I'm working on, and that's a big thing for me, but I really am experiencing the joy in it, and I'm getting better at it. I'm really getting better at it, and I love it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Come to now. Now, after you've experienced everything that you have up until this point, and you're now learning to loosen the grip, what does fulfillment mean to you?
It really means being content with who I am and how I'm living my life and the decisions that I make, and standing in my presence, just really believing in myself and trusting in myself. And every day is a new adventure. You use that word, and it is that I step into boldly just to see what's going to happen for that day.
Powerful. And after you've done all the to-do list, and and you continue on for this new chapter of your life, or the next phase, and you've checked all the boxes, but with ease and grace and flow, right?
Right.
And you're feeling fulfilled, and you've fulfilled everything that you wanted in your life. If it was your last day on earth, what would be the message that you would want to send everyone with, or leave us with?
The legacy that I would want to leave would be trust in yourself, believe in who you are, live life on your terms. Yeah, that would be it. Trust in yourself, believe in yourself, live life on your terms. Yeah, because it is an absolute adventure. It really is. And we sell ourselves short when we try to live by others, expectations, shoulds, have tos.
Yeah. And lastly, where can people find you if they want to learn more from you?
You bet. You can find me at www.lifewithlauramarie.com. That's my website. You can find me on Instagram, Life with Laura Marie. I'm also on LinkedIn, Laura Marie Rubin, and Facebook, Laura M. Rubin 01. Collected all these social media accounts along the way. I need to combine them or make them all uniform. The other thing that I like to offer to, I would like to offer to your audience is, if any of our discussion resonated with them and they're stuck, or they're in that, I know I need to do something different. I don't know what that first step is, or I don't know how to move the needle, or you know what, maybe they're like, I'm liking the hustle train, but maybe I'm interested in just seeing what the other side is like. I have a 30-minute connection call that's free, that is just to get on the phone and let's talk about where you are in your life and how we can, how you can move the needle toward living life on your terms, taking back your life, whatever that looks like. So, and they can, I'll send you the Calendly link. There's a Calendly link to that. So we can put that in there as well. And they can just click on that and set up a call. And like I said, I'm open to talk. I really am I'm very passionate about this mission, about living life on our terms and yeah, redefining success.
Easy. We can drop all the links in the show notes so people can find you.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for your time and wisdom, Laura. It's been such a fun conversation, and we've learned so much from you.
Thank you. It was great. I love, like I said, very passionate about the message. Thank you, Pauline, for the opportunity.